If you look closely at the trajectory of modern fame, you start to see a pattern. It's almost algorithmic. The industry doesn't like chaos. It likes manufactured certainty. It likes dynasty. It likes the Jenners and the Baldwins. It likes safe bets. And then, every once in a while, something weird happens. A glitch. In 2016, the biggest franchise in human history, films that generate the wealth of small nations, handed the keys to the kingdom to a 19-year-old kid from a leafy suburb in London. He didn't look like a movie star. He looked like the kid who bagged your groceries. He was awkward. He spoiled movie endings in interviews. He seemed terrifyingly normal. This is the Tom Holland narrative we've been sold for a decade. The underdog, the accident, the lottery winner who just happened to be in the right place at the right time. But what if I told you that narrative is a lie? What if the humble brag charm and the clumsy interviews are actually the final coat of paint on a machine that has been carefully shaped since childhood? To understand Tom Holland, we have to zoom out and start looking at him as a product of two very specific, very conflicting worlds. The brutal meritocracy of the British stage and the silent, invisible hand of soft nepotism. We need to talk about the origin story. Every hero has one, and Hollywood loves to sell us the zero-to-hero arc. The idea that talent is the only currency that matters. You see this in every Tom Holland interview.
I basically had been auditioning for about 5 months.
Well, I was lucky that I did a show in London called Billy Elliot. They trained me in gymnastics while I was doing that show, and it's just something I kept up. For my auditions for Spider-Man, all I did was send them videos of me doing backflips. Like, by the way, I can do gymnastics.
It frames his rise as inevitable talent finding its moment, but inevitability doesn't exist in the entertainment industry. Logistics do. Tom Holland was born in 1996 in Kingston upon Thames, and this is where the first crack in the underdog mythology appears. He isn't the son of a steelworker, he isn't the son of a struggling artist living in a squat, he is the son of Dominic Holland. Now, if you're American, that name probably means nothing to you. But in the UK comedy circuit of the 90s, Dominic Holland was a contender. He won the Perrier Best Newcomer Award. He had his own radio show. He wasn't Tom Cruise, sure. He wasn't rich, but he was in. In sociology, there's a concept called cultural capital. It's not money in the bank. It's knowledge. It's knowing how to talk to an agent. It's knowing that agents even exist. Most kids don't know that being an actor is a job application. They think it's magic. Tom grew up in a house where the entertainment industry was dinner table conversation. When he showed an aptitude for dance, his parents didn't panic. They didn't treat it as a phase to be outgrown. They recognized it as something worth investing in. This is the first uncomfortable truth of the Holland anomaly. He is what we call a soft nepo baby. He didn't walk onto a movie set because his dad made a phone call to Spielberg. That's hard nepotism. Soft nepotism is sneakier. It's the invisible tailwind. It's the absence of friction. It's the ability to fail without starving. But here's where people get it twisted. Calling Tom a soft nepo baby is not the same as calling him a fraud. Dominic Holland wasn't sitting on a billion-dollar franchise pipeline. He was a working comedian with indie-level clout, not a studio boss with a golden phone. Cultural capital opens doors, sure, but it doesn't guarantee what's on the other side. However, it does provide the armor you need to walk through them. In a TEDx talk years later, Dominic Holland pinpointed exactly what that armor was. He argued that his son's biggest advantage wasn't talent, it was confidence.
What's interesting about my son Tom is it's not his talent, but his sense of confidence, which I think is worth dwelling on. He auditioned for every single school play without securing a single speaking part in any of them. And we never thought to make an appointment to see the head of drama. He was disappointed, and so were we. I would sit him down and say, right, well, you went for Hamlet, and you've been cast as a tree. Be the best tree you can be.
That sounds like a touching parental sentiment or a generic platitude, but that's actually the point. In the context of soft nepotism, confidence is a resource. Confidence doesn't just come from winning, it comes from being allowed to lose. From auditioning for every school play, getting rejected, and having parents who don't say, maybe this isn't for you, but rather, on to the next one. Most kids don't quit because they lack ability. They quit because rejection is expensive. It costs emotional safety. It costs time. It costs the permission to keep trying. Tom was allowed to keep trying. Most kids born into this kind of orbit don't become Spider-Man. They become people who did a bit of stage, a bit of TV, then quietly moved into marketing. The road is there, but almost nobody drives it at 200 miles an hour. Soft nepotism is like starting a marathon 1 mile ahead of everyone else. It's a massive advantage, but you still have to run, and most people still tap out long before the finish line. If Tom Holland had been born in a working-class town in the Midlands with the exact same DNA and the exact same talent, we would never have heard his name. The talent was the engine, yes, but his background was the road, and most people don't have a road. You might argue that this is simply the result of having supportive, middle-class parents. After all, plenty of people have a similar safety net. And sure, a middle-class dentist from Ohio can afford to pay for their kids' acting classes. They can afford the gas to put in the car, but they don't have the map. Let's be clear. If you had the map, you'd give it to your kid too. That's not corruption, that's parenting. The problem isn't that Dominic Holland helped his son. The problem is an industry that refuses to admit how the game is actually played. A middle-class dentist tells their kid that Hollywood is a lottery and encourages them to have a backup plan in law or medicine. A comedian father knows Hollywood isn't a lottery, it's a trade. He knows the jargon. He knows that rejection isn't a signal to stop, it's just a Tuesday. That's the uncomfortable counterbalance. Systems create opportunity, not inevitability. The Holland story is impossible without the road, but the road is also littered with people who stalled out. Tom didn't invent the map, but he did floor the accelerator in a way most people either can't or won't. If we stop the analysis there, we fall into the trap of cynicism. Because privilege gets you to the door, it might even get you in the room. But in the world of elite performance, privilege cannot do a backflip. And this is where the story shifts from privileged kid to logistical unicorn. At age 10, Tom wasn't playing Xbox. He was being broken down and rebuilt by the British theater system. He was spotted by Lynn Page and thrown into the training program for Billy Elliot the musical. You have to understand what the West End does to children. It is not a fun after-school activity. It is a meat grinder. It is designed to take raw potential and hammer it into a product that can perform perfectly 8 times a week. Tom endured this. He metabolized it. But let's pause and look at the hidden invoice of the meat grinder. We love to praise the sweat equity of the child, but we rarely audit the financial equity of the parents. To survive the Billy Elliot training regime, you need a parent with the liquidity and time to ferry you to London 4 times a week. You need the train fare. You need the ability to potentially drop out of the standard school system. Technically, the audition for Billy Elliot was open to everyone. It was a democracy, but the 2 years of unpaid training required to actually get the role
took me about two and a half years to actually get onto the stage.
That was a tax that only the middle class and above could reliably pay. To understand what I mean, we have to look at the anti-Tom Holland, Barry Keoghan. While Tom was being taxied from his leafy London suburb to the West End, Barry was growing up in Summerhill, Dublin, bouncing between 13 different foster homes after his mother passed away from addiction.
My mother, the drugs hit the area. Affected all the families, and she was one of them that got caught. So, we went into foster care. And
how many homes would you have gone into down through the years? 13 in total?
Yeah.
Tom's entry was being spotted by a top choreographer at a dance school his parents paid for. Barry's entry was answering a handwritten casting notice taped to a shop window on Sheriff Street. Tom had parents who invested in his training and a private garden to master the backflips that would eventually win him Spider-Man. Barry didn't even have the €2 to catch a bus to acting school. Now, both of them made it. Barry is living proof that you can break in from the absolute bottom. But his story is the exception that proves the rule. He had to break down the door with a sledgehammer. Tom started inside the building. This is the soft nepotism of logistics. A working-class genius from a single-parent home in heavy debt creates the exact same sweat. They might have the exact same talent, but they usually can't afford the schedule. Tom's advantage wasn't that he didn't have to work. It's that he was supported enough to be able to work that hard. His parents absorbed the risk. They absorbed the cost. His survival in the industry was ensured. Barry's was a lottery ticket. So when Tom eventually debuted as Billy in 2010, performing through sickness and injury, he was displaying incredible personal discipline, yes, but he was also standing on a foundation of parental investment that acts as a silent filter for the rest of the population. The industry grinder requires raw material, but you have to pay a toll just to get into the machine. The transition from child actor to adult star is the valley of death. 95% of them don't make it. They either burn out or the industry decides they aren't cute anymore. Tom Holland survived the valley because of two things: water and generational competence. In 2012, director J.A. Bayona was casting the impossible. He needed a child who could convey abject primal terror while being drowned in a water tank for weeks on end. We view this movie as Tom's breakout, based on his acting chops. The scream he lets out when he thinks his mother is dying. It's haunting, it's technical perfection. Even Steven Spielberg, the kingmaker himself, went on record saying he was blown away. But ask yourself, why did a major studio trust Tom Holland with a multi-million-dollar disaster movie? Talent alone doesn't explain it. Tom wasn't the only child prodigy in London. He shared a dressing room with several other boys playing Billy Elliot who had the exact same training and the exact same skill set. But while the other boys knew how to dance, coming from a comedy family, Tom knew how to work a room, a skill that would eventually win him his biggest role in Hollywood. The others had stage presence. Tom also had industry fluency. Directors are risk-averse creatures. Hiring a child is a nightmare. They get tired, they have labor laws, and they get homesick. Studios don't need to consciously say, "This is Dominic Holland's son," for the bias to operate. The bias is structural. Kids raised around production tend to behave in ways studios already trust. This is where the family connection pays dividends that don't show up on a bank statement. The producers knew Tom came from a broadcast family. They knew he understood the difference between cut and action before he ever arrived on set. They assumed he would be professional, because professional is the language spoken in his house. He didn't just bring talent to the set of The Impossible, he brought ensured reliability. When Tom spent weeks being battered by thousands of gallons of water, he wasn't just proving his grit, he was validating the industry's bias, that showbiz kids are safer bets. They don't complain, they view the trauma of the set as part of the job description. Tom proved he was willing to drown for the shot, and in Hollywood, a kid who knows his lines, hits his marks, and doesn't cry when the water tank hits him, that is an asset you invest in. Fast forward to 2015. The Marvel Cinematic Universe needs a new Spider-Man. The casting call was a bloodbath. 7,500 audition tapes. The biggest names in young Hollywood were circling: Timothée Chalamet, Asa Butterfield, and Nat Wolff. While thousands of actors may have been in the mix, the air got thin very quickly. By the final screen test, it wasn't a sea of faces. It was a localized showdown between 6 finalists. On paper, Tom Holland shouldn't have won. He wasn't the most famous. He wasn't the most classically handsome. But he had something the others didn't. He understood the metagame. During the audition process, everyone was sending in polite self-tapes, reading lines against a white wall. Holland sent in videos of himself doing backflips in his backyard.
For my auditions for Spider-Man, all I did was send them videos of me doing backflips.
He sent in videos of himself flipping into frame. That isn't just gymnastics, that is confidence, the kind built by years of being told it's okay to keep going. A kid who feels like an outsider is terrified of breaking the rules. They do exactly what the casting sheet says. A kid who grows up with the industry demystified knows that the rules are just guidelines. Tom felt entitled to show them what he could do, even if they didn't ask for it. Then came the chemistry read with Robert Downey Jr. Downey creates chaos. He changes lines. He tries to break you.
My agents have told me that Marvel like you to learn the words exactly. You can't improvise, you can't do any of that.
During the scene, Downey threw the script out the window.
So I learned the words exactly, and then on the first take, Downey just completely changed the scene. So we started riffing with each other.
Most 19-year-olds would have frozen, terrified of ruining the take. Holland didn't. He improvised back. He threw the ball back at Iron Man. He won the role because, whether consciously or not, he understood the meta game. He knew Marvel wasn't looking for an actor. They were looking for a brand ambassador who could handle the pressure.
They're like, "He's great, isn't he?" I was like, "Yeah, he is." And that was it, 3 words.
His background gave him the soft nepotism of comfort in that room. It lowered his heart rate. It allowed him to treat Robert Downey Jr. like a scene partner rather than a deity. The gymnastics got his foot in the door, but the entitlement, the good kind, the kind that says, "I belong here," is what let him walk through it. Once he got the role, the machine turned on. It wasn't about talent anymore, it was about class signaling. Tom Holland's public persona is perfectly calibrated. The spoiler king, the clumsy boyfriend, the awkward Brit. It is charming, yes, but from a studio perspective, it is also incredibly safe. In sociology, class signaling is the way you unconsciously tell people you are one of them. Tom fits the mold of the high-end establishment. He plays golf, he is polite to interviewers, he doesn't get arrested, he doesn't start Twitter beefs. He was raised in the social codes of the British middle to upper class. This makes him culturally compatible with the producers and executives signing the checks. He is the path of least resistance. Contrast that with someone like Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf is undeniably talented. He carried franchises. He delivered raw, critically respected performances, but he was volatile. Public arrests.
Actor Shia LaBeouf was jailed after being escorted out of the musical Cabaret by 6 New York police officers.
Performance art stunts. On-set intensity that bled into headlines. Talent is important, but for a studio, talent plus predictability is better. Shia LaBeouf came from a chaotic, working-class background and brought that intensity to the screen and to the set. Tom brought the manners of a private school head boy. Tom Holland generates the opposite of LaBeouf. He generates comfort. Think about the lip-sync battle performance effectively. He dances in fishnets to Rihanna. It shattered the internet. Why? Because it subverted the action hero trope. But notice what it didn't do. It didn't threaten the brand. It was naughty but safe. It was edgy but palatable. In an era where celebrities are constantly canceled for being out of touch, Holland is marketed as relatably chaotic. Conveniently though, his mistakes in interviews generate millions in free marketing. Some skeptics see these slips less as accidents and more as controlled chaos. Because standard PR is so sterile, a leaked detail from a charming kid feels authentic, making it possibly the most effective, unskippable advert Disney ever produced. He's charming, sure, but mostly he's Disney's way of playing it safe. In a volatile industry, being the nice boy from a good family is a superpower. It makes him the ultimate safe bet for a billion-dollar corporation. So, let's return to the original question. Is Tom Holland a product of soft nepotism or a freak of nature? The truth, as always, is somewhere in the gray. Tom Holland is a case study in optimized privilege. It's simple math. If your dad is a plumber, you learn how pipes work. If your dad is a comedian, you understand how audiences work. He had the postcode, he had parents who understood the industry, he had the safety net to take risks that most kids never get to take. But here's the part the internet often skips. None of that guarantees outcomes. It guarantees options. What makes Holland interesting isn't that he cheated the game, it's that he played the only game that exists at the highest level. Start ahead, then sprint like you're behind. He is what happens when structural advantage, freakish work ethic, and historical timing all collide. Take away any one of those pieces, the dad in comedy, the West End meat grinder, the gymnastic training, and the entire Jenga tower wobbles. The world is desperate to label nepo babies as villains or self-made stars as heroes, but Tom Holland is a reminder that almost nobody at the top is purely one or the other. He's not a miracle, he's not a glitch. He's the logical output of a system that rewards early access, punishes weakness, and worships charisma, plus one kid who is unusually willing and able to survive inside that machine. He might have had a key to the building, and to be honest, he's the one who kept turning it, night after night, long after most people would have given up. But we can't ignore the fact that the lock was designed for a key exactly like his.